am so happy that so many of you are already subscribed to my channel. Thank you so much for that. I would also like to preface my first story, because this is so exciting, with several things. One, I'm going to be dedicating this to my parents, who were just absolutely amazing. I also received a phone call that I didn't expect from a person that I've known for many years who said, "Hey, would you come and read at our book club?" Well, those of you who really know me well know that I will go anywhere on this earth, whether it be Iceland or Norway or I don't care. Those people who really know me, and from my first video, you already know I wanted to be a globetrotter. It does not take a whole lot to talk me into flying halfway across the world to read my stories. So yes, I would do that. So now let me start with my first story. This one is called Butterbrot, which is a German word, and loosely translated, it means a piece of bread with butter. And as I read this, you will understand why I call it that. Here we go. Bremen had been severely bombed, a favorite place for the Allies to target. After all, it was an important large harbor on the North Sea in Germany. The destruction was devastating, and Grandpa's houses were leveled towards the end of the war. We were evacuated to a rural area by Oldenburg, to a very small village called Dinklage. We, my mother, grandma, and myself, had been given one room in a farmhouse of a kindly old couple. Whenever they had any food they could share with us, they were only too happy to invite us into their kitchen. But most days, they hardly had enough for themselves. On those days, we would walk from farmhouse to farmhouse, knocking on doors, asking for food. Sometimes doors never opened, or we would hear angry voices behind the closed doors telling us to get away, or they'd send their dogs out after us. Frequently, there was no advance warning, and a growling, menacing dog with teeth exposed would come towards us. Once in a while, some kind soul would invite us in and share their meager fare. Today, it was just my grandmother and myself walking for miles. We were tired from walking all day. It had been a fruitless endeavor. Now it was starting to get late, and she told me that we'd better start heading back to the village. My stomach was growling, and grandmother stopped for a moment to tighten my belt. I said, "Ow, Oma, that hurts." She said that it would be okay because once the belt got really tight, I would no longer feel hungry. And guess what? That was true. It hurt, but I wasn't hungry. As we turned around the next corner, we saw a lone farmhouse, quite small, at the end of a long country lane. We turned onto the lane and walked towards our next prospect. After knocking on the door a few times, it opened, and a very tall old man with flowing white hair and a white beard appeared. He had bushy white eyebrows and kind, vivid blue eyes. After Grandma told him that we hadn't eaten since the day before, he invited us into his modest home. There was a fire in the old iron kitchen stove, which gave the room a soft glow and a warm, cozy feeling. The wooden table looked worn, and there was only a small bench and one chair. Besides some pots and pans hanging from the ceiling, there were a couple of cups and a half-dozen plates and an old-fashioned wooden sideboard. He asked me to sit down. Oh, and when I squeezed in between the table and the bench, I noticed a curled-up cat contentedly sleeping away the early evening. I snuggled up beside her. She was so soft and warm, it made me feel wonderful. The softness and warmth of this large kitty just made me so safe and gave badly needed warmth to my little body. I put my hands on her tummy and looked forward to my upcoming treat. The old man and my grandmother were deeply engaged in discussing what it must be like for small children, actually just me, to grow up in a war-torn country. The lack of food, the destruction, and the early memories, those first impressions which imprint that blank mind of a baby. To me, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I had been born in September of 1942, and it always looked like this. Sirens and midnight attacks were part of life, and being cold part of the time and not having enough to eat was not unusual, but daily routine. The old man took a small piece of farmer's bread out of a metal bread box. The familiar large oval loaves were the standard fare for the many small farmers who dotted this area of northern Germany. Even my mother had once been lucky enough to get all the ingredients to mix up a bowl of dough, and we proudly covered it with a dishcloth and carried it to a local bakery. The outdoor brick oven there produced a crusty, delicious loaf. This had been an unusual event, and the three of us savored every crumb and thanked God for our good fortune. The old man put the remainder of what had once been a handsome, shiny loaf of bread on a wooden board and took a menacing, huge knife from a drawer in the sideboard. He meticulously aimed at the bread and sliced with one sharp and strong stroke. A large piece of bread fell off to the side, and I could literally taste it already. I could feel juices in my mouth. His weather-beaten face turned gentle, and his big white teeth dominated his face in this enormous smile. But those morning glory-colored eyes shone like stars in the night and didn't seem to belong in such an old face. As he handed me the slice of bread, he gently said, "Here you are, little one. I wish I had some butter to put on this piece of bread, but wait. Oh, I do have a tiny little bit, and I have honey from my bees. I've had bees for years, you know, to the great dismay of my neighbors. They've complained and wanted me to get rid of my beehives because they said they didn't want swarming bees close to their homes and families. I don't understand. They are beneficial for us. They produce sweet honey and pollinate flowers. People can be so strange, can't they? Of course, now, with the way things are, they all like my bees. And more correctly, they really love my bees because they love the honey. I have frequently caught some of them trying to steal my honey from my bees. But I'm big and I look menacing and they run away. I love that old man. With that, he had covered the bread with a thin layer of that tiny amount of butter, and the honey smelled wonderful. I just loved it. It was in a small gray and blue crock. As he pushed the piece of bread towards me, I asked him if I could please have a knife. He looked at me very puzzled and said, "But what do you want with a knife?" "Oh, well, I can't start eating until I've cut the bread." And he looked at me and he said, "I don't understand." And I said, "My grandmother and I have been walking all day. I know she's very, very hungry. I need to give her a piece." This strong old man, who appeared gigantic to me, suddenly turned bright red and was nervous. His beautiful blue eyes filled with tears. And after a few moments, he looked at me and he said, "No, that's just fine. That piece is for you, little one. I'll fix one for your grandmother too." And he was nervous, he was fidgety, and he said, as he took the bread out and cut the piece, and he turned to my grandmother and said, "What a wonderful little girl. You are so lucky to have such a granddaughter, so kind and thoughtful. I wish I had someone who looked out after me like this. My wife died years ago, and we didn't have any children. So it's just me, my cat, and the bees." Grandma smiled and put her arm around me to give me a gentle hug. The world felt wonderful to me, a warm, cozy place to sit, a purring, snuggly, warm cat, my grandmother, who I loved and adored, and a hearty bread with honey, the kind old man, and a comfortable farm kitchen. I was happy. It had been a good day. I'd like to say something else before you all go away. If it were not for my friend Lori Palanza, who is this incredible woman and, as you can see, a fabulous videographer. What's the word? Help me out.
Videographer.
Videographer. I've only been in this country almost 100 years, still don't know English. Well, you know, what can I say? Anyway, I'll see you soon, and toodaloo. Thanks for watching.